Hi, everyone. Welcome to a Mulberry Conversation. My name is Kelsey Daly, and I am the Senior Marketing and Events Specialist here at Mulberry. So a little bit about Mulberry. We are a full-service recruiting agency serving the Pacific Northwest and the San Francisco Bay Area. Our specialty areas include human resources, administrative office, finance, accounting, payroll, and operations. I encourage you to check out our website at mulberrytalent.com to see previously recorded Mulberry conversations and to view our full suite of service offerings and current job opportunities. So let's dive in. Today we are joined by our founder, Lauren Francis, and Megan Carle, founder of Carle Consulting, LLC, and author of her new book, Walk Away to Win, a playbook to combat workplace bullying. In her book, Megan tells her own story and those of other real men and women she interviewed for the book. But more importantly, she pulls back the curtain to offer a clear description of what workplace bullying is, what it might look like, what targets can and should do to try to combat their bullies, and how colleagues and mentors can help when they see somebody at work being treated in this terrible fashion. Megan has also founded Carle Consulting, where she gives workshops on handling workplace bullying and creating an inclusive culture of connection and trust. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Megan and Lauren.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are so glad you're here. And we are welcoming Megan Carle, and we are talking about her book, Walk Away to Win. And just a little background, Megan and I met last summer. We're part of a women's group, and I was immediately intrigued by her story as it resonated with me, as had a similar experience in a past work environment. And I could never put a name to it. I just knew it happened, and then I resigned and on my way. And then it just brought so much clarity to me, and I was just really drawn to it. So when I heard about your book actually coming out, I reached out to your publisher and your people. And so here you are, we're going to talk to and with about this book. And I want to really start with your story. And I've reading the book, and I've listened to so many of your interviews, which I've enjoyed so much. And I wanted to maybe start with telling a little bit about your story, and then of course the story of others, because you interviewed over 50 people. And I'm really intrigued by their stories and what you found. So, yeah.
Great. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here. My story is a story of sport. I grew up in a sport family. My stepdad, who came into my life when I was about 3 years old, was a basketball coach. And so I learned at an early age what it meant to be in the eye of a sport storm, when a sport literally puts food on your table. Basketball has a seat at your table. You are living, breathing, eating, discussing basketball. I also learned what it meant to be a coach's kid. And that was my first personal brand. I was coach's daughter. And that is the way I operated in the world. It's the way I approached sport. It's the way I approached my grades, my friends, how I worked. I knew always that I was representing the coach. Both my parents were teachers, so ours was a dinner table of conversation, of voices being heard and nurtured and challenged and understood and desired. And so that really is the orientation I took into the workforce, and it boded well for me for quite a long time. I had this sort of head down, do great work, do your best work, be a good teammate, muscle through, learn from your mistakes, and keep pushing forward. So when I ran into something that I couldn't muscle through, no matter how hard I tried, and I always liken it to the pick that's been set, and you cannot find your way around that pick because that player keeps jutting their knee out into your unsuspecting, unprepared quad and drops you to the floor. So when I ran into that type of situation, I found myself off balance. I found myself confused and tangled up in my feet and laying flat on the court most of the time.
And you recognized it early on when you were promoted and you were in a meeting. I think you were abroad. Were you in Paris at the time?
Yes.
And there was an opportunity to introduce you, and there was not an acknowledgement. Was that kind of the beginning?
I didn't know that it was, but in hindsight, I do know that was a moment in time that was significant. And introductions are important. Making connection with people is important. And when that opportunity was not taken at a very clear, appropriate moment to make that introduction, it caught me off guard. I remember thinking, that's weird that this is my first meeting with this global team and there's no introduction. I've had people ask me, why didn't you just stand up and introduce yourself? The Megan that we know would have done that. And at the time, that didn't feel appropriate. It felt like I knew there was something, the air was shifting around me, but I really didn't know how to define it. And then it's also interesting, it was a meeting with many other vice presidents, and many of whom I knew. No one stood up and said, you know what, I'd love to introduce my friend Megan Carle, who's here on our team for the first time. And I think, again, hindsight, I think that particular leader had already set that stage. And so people knew that they weren't going to do that. But introductions are important. And then what happens is when we're not introduced, we lower our standards. I guess introductions aren't that important. And then I guess this isn't that important either, or that I guess getting my name right's not that important either, or being on time to a meeting, or telling your coworker if the meeting room has changed, or all these things start to become less and less important, and they really take us down with them.
It really does. And your story just is fascinating. And one of the things that I think is important, we're recruiters and we interview job seekers all the time. And one of the things that is always clear is that we ask, why did you leave that role, and so on. And constantly, it's really about a culture issue and a boss issue. And we've all heard the term, we don't leave our jobs, we leave our bosses. But it's a consistent theme. And I think one of the things I want to talk about is identifying what are the different forms of workplace bullying, and tell us. And then the other question is, tell us about this personality, because what happened for you happens for a lot of people, in that you weren't introduced and you note it, but you push it away. And then the next thing happens and you just go, oh, it's just me, I'm being sensitive. And you make all these excuses and reasons why, and it goes on for a while. And then that stops working, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm just coming into like what are the different forms of workplace bullying, and then the behaviors and the identifying that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to understand what is happening to us. I didn't. And those that I interviewed did not. We did not have the language. We didn't understand that we had actually been targeted by a workplace bully, and what we were experiencing was indeed workplace bullying. So I decided I needed to simplify and put some structure around what this thing was. And what I realized was I was either bullied in public or private, and it was either overt or covert. And so I started to put this graph together and plot these different profiles. And that public overt bully is that in your face bully. They want witnesses. They're going to bang the table. They're going to yell and diminish in front of people. They want everybody to see that it is in your face. They are the easiest bully to see. The public covert is they're sneaky. They want to put you off your feet. They want to trip you up a little bit. Maybe only you and the bully know what the bully is doing. It could be some sort of distraction in a meeting. They're constantly pushing their pen up and down, staring at you. Am I getting to you? Or they never turn their phone off, and their phone is a barking dog when it rings. Am I getting you off your game? So that's public. Even getting your name wrong, that can be a public covert form of bullying. I know your name is pronounced Megan. I'm going to continue to pronounce it Megan. You and I both know that I am doing that to continue to show that you are my subordinate and I have the power. On the private side, so when it's one-on-one, the private overt is that two-faced bully. If we could create a senior director like Lauren from scratch, it would be just like Lauren. She is that good in public. In private, Lauren, when I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. Shut it. And then finally, there's that private covert, which is that about face bully. They're passive aggressive. Gosh, I just thought somebody else had told you that the meeting had changed, or I didn't know that you made half of what your counterpart made. That's so weird. You don't make, he makes 2 times what you do. Just that passive aggressive sort of behavior. And then, of course, the one that really knocks us down is the gaslighter. And they're so hard for us to define and put our finger on, because their whole reason for being is to really make us feel like we're losing our minds. They want to make us feel like we're crazy, we're making stuff up. I told you the meeting got moved. No, you didn't. Or, yeah, did you not include that slide because that slide was in there? Did you pull that slide? No, I didn't touch it. So it's just that what is happening. Part of what is so hard about workplace bullying is it's so broad. The Workplace Bullying Institute defines it as a pattern of repeated health harming mistreatment. It can include sabotage of one's work or exclusion, or these examples I've given of this like diminishing, demeaning, disrespectful behavior. But it's such a very broad definition that it is difficult sometimes to get really concise about it.
But everyone is observing this behavior. They're watching this happen in real time. So where are your allies? What happened there?
Yeah, so there's 80 million of us who have been affected by workplace bullying. So it's like 1 in 2 workers.
Wow.
And I think that what happens is a climate of fear and intimidation is set. And so no one wants to rock that boat, because right now the bully's got his sights on Megan Carle, and Megan Carle is it. And those allies sitting in that room, they don't want the focus to be shifted to them. That's just the simple answer to that. Also, everyone's caught off guard. You don't go to work expecting that somebody is going to want to consistently knock us off our game or consistently diminish us. And so everybody is backpedaling. And if I could go back in time, and now I have the benefit of having studied workplace bullying so much and interviewing so many people and listening to podcasts and reading academic books about it. But the thing with workplace bullying is you have to have some moves. You've got to have some moves in your toolbox. I did not. I was so confused. I was so busy trying to figure out what was going on. I had no moves. I was like Drew Barrymore in 51st Dates. Every time I met with a bully, I expected something different every single time. And I laugh about it now because it was so obvious that there was one way this was going to go. So I like to suggest to people, document the behavior, start to get a feel for, is this workplace bullying, or is this an abrasive boss who may be trying to hold you accountable in a way that is not feeling that great to you, but there is not a pattern of health harming mistreatment. Accountability is very different from a pattern of health harming mistreatment. Having a bad day is different from a pattern of health harming mistreatment. So first of all, it's just check yourself, get outside of your own experience. What does the culture feel like? Is it one of fear? Are people stuck and unable to express themselves? Start to make those observations and document, and then know the response options that I highlight are you can ignore, resist, comply, or enlist. And enlist is definitely the one that I wish I had gone to, because I always went to comply.
Kelsey, do you have a question?
Yeah. So Vicky is wondering, she says, so true about not wanting to be the next target of the bully's focus. How do we help people come forward?
Perfect question.
Thanks for the question. First of all, recognizing what is happening and putting language to it. Anything that is happening to us that's painful, that we do not know how to talk about, is going to prevent us from healing. And so if we can put language to it, if you're witnessing that, Kelsey, I noticed in the meeting that this person was really coming at you. How did that make you feel? It made me feel really uncomfortable. I don't know. Was I doing something wrong? Was I not? No, Kelsey, you weren't doing anything wrong. That is bullying behavior. I documented it. And Would you like to go to HR together? Shall we go talk to HR about that? Engage our HR business partner? No, I don't want you to do anything. Kelsey, that is disrespectful behavior and that is not acceptable here. So with or without you, I'm going to have to do that. Those are the kinds of conversations those that are witnessing want to have with people. There could be other people that witness that. Yeah, Kelsey, I saw that. I didn't think anything was wrong with it. Then that is not one of your allies.
Sure. One of the things that you talked about too was you had taken a walk with your, is it an equine therapist?
Equine therapist, yeah.
Equine therapist. So they're horse therapists?
That's right.
Yeah, tell us what she said to you, because I know you talked about this. I know you just talked about it, but I know it came from her therapy.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre because I was in the midst of writing the book and I felt like I had a good idea on the 5 types and how I was describing those. That's going to really land. I'm a product person and I'm a marketeer. And so for me, it was all about the consumer experience with this book. I felt that's understandable. People can plot the behaviors. And then, but what do you do? I was struggling with, probably largely due to the fact because I had no experience in doing anything that was effective.
Yeah.
It's not one of my best moments. I really did not have any move. And my neighbor was out for a run one day and I happened to be outside and she stopped and we were visiting and she started talking to me about her horses. And I said, you're always talking about your horses. What exactly what exactly are you doing? And she said, I'm an equine therapist. And I said, tell me a bit about that. And she just gave me a little dose of that. And I said, could I interview you for my book? I need response options. When a bully has found and targeted somebody, I need something to tether to. And I'm liking this. And so she came over and we talked about human to horse and that interaction. And it just made sense to me. This whole ignore, resist, comply, enlist. Horses, if they're going to ignore, their eyes get big, they set their jaw, they turn away. If they're going to comply, they're head down, but they still might do something with their body that looks like, you know what, I'm complying, but I am not happy about this. Resisting, they will come at you. And enlist, they will sometimes enlist the herd. So I thought it was a really beautiful way to bring this to life.
And resisting is not an option in this scenario with a bully at work, meaning this personality, you can't combat it.
Because if you do, it will probably amplify the bully. But what I would like to say is, let's say in that public setting, for example, a resist could look like what you're doing right now is making me really uncomfortable. And I can see that it's making my team really uncomfortable as well. So we can take your question offline. We can call the meeting for another time. So what resist is all about is really like holding your space. And I think it's a beautiful option if you feel that you can do it. When I think back, I certainly wish I would have said, what you're doing right now is bullying behavior and it's making me really uncomfortable. And I'm going to call the meeting. Now, I have a pretty good idea of how that would have gone. I think that bullying would have intensified, but I didn't try it. And I think it's important just to test some things. The other thing that I continued to do is I continued to meet one-on-one with a proven bully. Dangerous. So in the book, I talk about +1, report to HR, get something on record of these interactions. It's really important.
You were interviewed this morning and the person that was interviewing you talked about what happens to your creativity.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
I think workplace bullying, unhealthy workplace organizations really kill creativity because people start operating from a place of fear. When fear and intimidation is coming at you, the response generally is to be in fear. And so that idea of creating, having a vision, setting about something new, bigger, better, bolder, that's never been before, we start to shut down. You read it in the book with the bullying in the wild section, which is my favorite part of the book because it's these courageous people who shared their stories.
Hmm.
Their creativity was completely shut down because we start to play small. We show up in a way that is not ourselves. Our nervous system is in free fall. We don't even know what is happening. We become paranoid. We don't know who we can trust. So there's no surprise that we're not at our creative best.
Kelsey, do you have another question for us?
Now we have a couple questions. So one of the attendees says, what if the bully is an HR professional and your superior?
The bully is an HR professional and your superior, the person being bullied. That's a real tough situation. Document and go to, and again, complex issue, nothing simple about any of this. So when I give ideas, know that. Go to employee relations, find your allies. Who are your allies that are potentially at that same level as that HR professional or unprofessional in this situation? Who do you know? Okay, one of his or her peers is that, okay, I know them. I think I can trust them. Try to find some allies of support to share what is going on. Document, employee relations, and you may be heading towards, I'm going to need some outside counsel.
Okay, and then Shelby says, thank you so much for being open. Sometimes, though, the covert private bullying seems so obvious to the victim. It can be really difficult to convey to leaders to make a change. Do you have suggestions for how to objectively describe this sneaky behavior?
I think being able to put language around it as, I have run into a covert private bully, or I have run into an overt private bully, and here is what I'm experiencing. Actual dialogue. I was told, get back in line or get out of here. Or I was told, get your shit together. Or I was told, you don't matter. Like actual quotes from that bully in that private setting. And then the other thing I would do is I would make it very difficult for both the bully and your HR business partner. I would make it difficult on them both to say, I am no longer comfortable meeting one-on-one with this individual. I do not feel safe. So you start to use the words, I do not feel safe. That's where now at the level where you're on record with HR. That's the kind of language that they have to respond to. And I think when you use that sort of language with HR, hey, isn't this a form of harassment? I knew you'd want to know about it. That you put them on record and you're saying to them, it is your function's job to help me.
Yep. Okay, we have one more question that came in too.
Yeah.
From Erica regarding the one-on-one meetings. What do you do when the bully is your supervisor? I've been avoiding our check-ins, but we have one scheduled for tomorrow.
Erica, I would report to HR what has been happening if you have documentation of it. If you don't, perhaps for tomorrow's meeting, based upon your work product that you're going to share, bring in a functional expert with you if that's an option. Hey, Brandon from my team is going to join us, or don't tell the bully. Surprise the bully. It's okay. It's your meeting. So you can bring somebody with you from your team. And then your explanation is, because we were going to go over this work product, I really wanted Brandon here. Brandon's excused. No, Brandon's going to stay. If Brandon's excused, then we'll call the meeting for another time. Try to put yourself in the position of, this is my space. This is how I'm going to operate. If you haven't been documenting how those interactions are going with that person, please start dates, names, get specific, and get that to HR so that there is a record of it. But make it very difficult to have a one-on-one meeting with a proven bully. That's a really great question. It should feel cumbersome. It should feel cumbersome. It should.
Next question. What if the bully is the head of the organization and second in command? I'm in HR and my boss is aware of the situation because it's overt in meetings.
Then you've got employee relations, you've got outside legal counsel. Again, you've got, who are my allies at my level? Is there an opportunity where we're all going to join together to take a stand, which has happened at companies, and the results have been exiting of those in that kind of position. And then the final is, if your values no longer align to the company's no longer aligned to yours, then you've got some decisions to make. and they're not easy.
Yep. So we're running up on the end of time, but we have 3 more questions that came in.
All
So,
right, let's go.
we-
Rapid fire.
Yeah, what to do when you document, but management continues to minimize and trivialize. For instance, I have requested an investigation for harassment. I don't feel safe, but I'm told that I need to make friends and find my tribe.
Okay, great question and all the right language. And if you've already gone to HR and you're using that language and you're told from HR, you need to make friends and find your tribe, then it's an issue in that company. Check your handbook. What is the language in the handbook around workplace bullying? Take that with you. It says here that this type of behavior is not tolerated at this organization, and yet it's the behavior that I'm experiencing each day, and you're telling me to make friends. Who else do I need to go talk to? Always find your allies. They're your witnesses. They're the ones that you need for support. Employee relations is a separate body from HR at some organizations. Is there a chief cultural officer or at your brand? Have you gone that route? And finally, consulting and some legal advice would be really helpful in that situation.
Absolutely. What do you do if you report bullying from your supervisor to HR with documentation and HR doesn't do anything and supports your supervisor?
I'm a little bit repetitive here. You can go to ER, which would be the first step I would take. I would also, again, make sure, try not to go through this alone. You've got some allies at work, find them just for that support. Or you might even grab one of them and say, could you come to ER with me? I'm not comfortable. I want a witness. And then outside legal counsel in that situation. And just because you're getting outside legal counsel, it doesn't mean I'm going to sue the company. And that sounds really scary. It means you're getting outside legal counsel. And there's some really good, you're looking for employment lawyers.
But you had mentioned earlier, walking away is an option. And we have a lot of people that reach out to us and talk about their environments and their situation because they're looking to change. They become a job seeker or a passive job seeker. In that case, to have a plan that supports yourself. You don't want to hurt yourself in the process, or your prosperity, or your income, or your job. And so you want to have a plan so that you can then take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, you are what matters.
That's right. Yeah, it's a really difficult position to be put in terms of, gosh, I'm at this place that I used to love to work at. I love this work. And for the most part, I love all the people. And now I've been so mistreated that I'm now considering walking away from this. And so what does that mean? Does that mean I'm a quitter and a loser and a failure? No, what it means really is you have your own definition. You've found your own definition of winning, and you know that your health, your well-being, the health and well-being of your family is more important than being mistreated at your workplace each day. Big decision to make.
Mm-hmm. We do have 2 more questions, so we can rapid fire.
Great.
I'm up. I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah, we're up for it. Absolutely. Great. This is great.
A good one. Is it possible to coach someone out of being a bully? We have a high-level employee we've gotten some complaints about, and there is a record with HR. Is there a chance to redeem that employee?
What a great question. I love it. I don't know is the answer, but I certainly think it's worth trying. And I think the first step is, okay, you're aware that you've got this bully in your workforce. So check, that's awesome. And then how do you approach that bully? Giving that bully an opportunity to change his or their ways is really important. Do you understand that when you are in meetings and you operate like this, that is considered bullying behavior? And do you understand that is not tolerated at this company? So that's the first check-in. No, I had no idea. And most of them will have no idea because they're scared people operating inside scary people, as Michelle Obama says. They're operating from a position of fear. They've maybe been bullied. They've had something in their past that has caused them to be this way. And so probably the best thing is going to be for them to go get some therapy, get their own, figure out what has gone so awry that they're bringing into the workplace each day. But I certainly think that's worth a try. I really do, to make people aware and be really specific using the language. Hopefully, if you've bought the book, there's language in there that you can use and that would be helpful.
Perfect. Bernadette says, also, how do you document when the covert bully and their enablers, as they work in groups, are antagonizing you, but does not do so directly where they're using your name? Also, witnesses tend to not want to get involved, short of a subpoena. How do you get witnesses?
I think, as I said up front, if you have people who have witnessed the bullying behavior, whether that is what it sounds like is covert, then you do have witnesses. The question really is, do they think that behavior is bullying behavior? If they don't, then you know they're not your ally. If they do, then they are. I'll go back over and over again, document what is happening, use the language, use language that describes your fear, your discomfort. I think this feels like harassment of some sort. This is a matter of respect/disrespect. Use the language in your handbook. If HR is not going to be part of the solution, follow the thread to employee relations, beat that drum hard, and get outside counsel. Employment attorneys, that is what they are there for, to counsel us and to give us language. They might say, you want to go back in, use this language. That I would say exhaust all of that.
Mhm.
And then Katrina says, hi, Meegs. What would you do if you report an instance to your boss who promises to share it upwards, but never does, and keeps saying they will, and then doesn't provide the support to go around them to ensure it's reported and documented?
I would try to find some allies at your boss's level. Oh, I work with so-and-so on this project and we worked well together. I'm going to call a one-on-one and I'm going to confide. I need an ally or a couple, and I'm going to let them know what has happened. And I'm going to let them know I've given my boss plenty of opportunity to do this. I want to now go to HR. I don't want to do that on my own. I don't want to do that without first telling somebody I'm doing that. And you may even say, would you be comfortable going to HR with me? Would you be comfortable talking to my boss with me? So you're really getting that kind of support. Most likely, I'm sure Katrina's listening and going, yeah, I tried that. And then my boss is going to retaliate. Factual. But you've got to report to HR. You've got to report to employee relations. Get your handbook out. What is the language in there? I'm going to guess most of the people on this webinar do not know what the policy is in their workplace around workplace bullying. And I only say that, I certainly didn't. I didn't know. So use the language.
So Megan, did you read your handbook? Like, at what point did you become aware of the bullying language in your handbook?
I did not know what to call what was happening. I just knew that I was no longer an effective leader. I was really struggling. I went to an annual physical. My blood pressure was through the roof. I was having all kinds of physical and psychological symptoms that I did not know were related to the mistreatment I was experiencing at work until I went to the doctor.
Wow.
And she said, do you understand fight or flight? Do you understand cortisol pumping through your body and your nervous system collapsing? What are the other symptoms you're having? It was the first time I had ever really put everything on the table and said, I don't sleep because I hallucinate. I see things. I am paranoid. If I am walking down the hallway towards someone, I could know them. I could not know them. They might be my best friend. I've never heard of them, but I wouldn't know if they could see me. I was disassociating from my body in that way. So obviously I was no longer an effective leader. A friend of mine sent me a YouTube video kind of towards the end of my career, and it described this dark triad, which you read about in Playing Small about Casey, because Casey ran into a bully who exhibited narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. And scientists who research workplace bullying call that the dark triad. It's like you've hit the jackpot of bullying. They're coming at you from all of these points. When I saw that YouTube video and I heard that term, and I heard the term workplace bullying, I finally knew that's what I was experiencing. And I knew I was in really bad shape. So that for me was that wake up call of, what is your low? what is your rock bottom? I ask that in the book, and it's not a rhetorical question because we will go low. We will put up with a lot. I had somebody I interviewed, maybe if I just run into the median and not do too much damage to anyone else, but just take myself out. That's our lowest of lows. I knew I needed to help to find language around this because people are really suffering.
We have conversations several times a month, and we have so many people asking questions. So we can see that this is a huge topic. I think a lot of people that are on the call are in smaller companies, I'm sure, a good portion of them, and there is really nowhere to go. And we talk about ER, we talk about HR, and they may not have those, the allies at their level may not be there. And so the advice that I have to, when I hear these stories from people, from the job seekers that call me, is to be able to identify, you've got to start talking about it. You need to share what's going on for you, because we tend to minimize it. We cope with it. We find ways to say, oh, it's me, not them. And we tell ourselves over and over again, and we end up nowhere.
And I think also understanding the culture in which workplace bullying, hostility, toxicity thrive is really important. It's why I included that in part 2 of the book, so that as you are either interviewing or even looking, trying to evaluate, why is this happening? This company does these things. This company is all about revenue. This company thinks profit is purpose. This company has one way to make decisions, and that's a top-down autocratic rule. I don't know if I'm valued at this company. I don't know how I'm reviewed or rewarded. So there's all these things that we can have an evaluation ourselves. And if you're coming up with negative responses to those things, we're internally serving, myopic behavior, autocratic rule, nobody knows they're valued, we don't know our purpose, nobody trusts each other, we're not connected, then you have a decision to make. Is that the right spot for you?
Yeah, no, it's true. It is about making that decision. And sometimes it's really scary to go there, but that's the beginning.
Yes. Yeah.
Gosh, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us about this very important topic. It's been a great discussion today.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelsey. Thanks, Lauren, for having me. And thanks everybody who jumped on. And I'm easy to reach out to if you want to have more discussion. You can find me anywhere: LinkedIn, Instagram, the book, my website. So if there's anything you want to follow up, the people who are still on, please don't hesitate to reach out.
And don't forget about your playlist. We've got a playlist.
The playlist, go Spotify, WATW. It's wonderful. And it really does complement the experience of the book.
Thank you for making that and for writing this book and for your courage.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Continue to be amazing, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.